Hello everyone, so I have a different type of video for you here. This time I'm going to go through my top 10 weapons of the Ukraine war. I'm flying to England at the moment to visit my family, so I figured this would be a good video to run now. It may come as a surprise, but there are actually a few Russian weapons that make the list. Spoiler alert, the S-400 doesn't make it. Maybe I'll do a worse weapons of the war, so the S-400 may get a shout out. Anyway, let's begin. Number 10, the Stugna-P. There was a big choice of anti-tank missiles to choose from here. NLAWs, Javelins, the Russian 9K111, which have all been impressive, racked up some pretty impressive victories, you could argue could be included. NLAWs and Javelins were vital in the early stages of the war, for example, during the defence of Kyiv. Javelins scored some very impressive victories as we've seen on videos. The 9K111, though old, took out a Challenger 2 tank and has proven to be pretty impressive. But I just like the Stugner. I like the concept. I like the tripod launching, like not having to have an operator nearby to allow for some crafty ambushes. I like the fact that the launcher films a missile, allowing us to get some pretty cool footage of the strikes. And Ukraine has, of course, used it very well. It's a Ukrainian developed weapon, and Ukraine has had some huge success with it, taking out many Russian armoured vehicles. They've used the Stugner to not only take out enemy tanks and APCs and the like, but they've used it to actually down a helicopter on a couple of occasions. The Stugner may not be as advanced as a Javelin, but it is cheaper, it has a longer range, and it is harder to jam. On the downside, unlike the Javelin and the NLAW, it requires a team of three to operate it, given its weight. But I really like the Stugner. I think it's proven to be an excellent weapon, and I expect once the war is over, Ukraine will get a lot of orders for this weapon system. Number 9. Kar-52 with Elmur missiles. So this is the first Russian weapon on the list, the Kar-52 with Elmurs. Now the Kar-52 is a pretty good and reliable helicopter, but it didn't actually do much to warrant a place on the list for a big chunk of the war. They did the job, but suffered pretty high losses. Despite them being quite rugged, quite survivable and quite tough to shoot down, losses were high. But it was still a solid helicopter, no doubt about it, not really a helicopter which I can mock. But that was until the introduction of the Elmur missile in late 2022. Elmur is basically a light multi-purpose guided rocket with an operational range of 14.5 kilometers. So when the Elmur was introduced in Ukraine, this allowed the Kar-52 operators to start operating beyond the range of Ukrainian manpads. As an example, 29 Kar-52s were lost in 2022 alone. Since the Elmur started being used, just 14 have been lost, around 9 or 10 of which were destroyed on the ground in the TACOM strikes. So the Elmur missile has drastically increased the survivability of Kar-52s, allowing them to operate out of the range of Ukrainian manpads, whereas before they were operating in quite dangerous areas. And they are a successful missile, as well as allowing the Kar-52s to operate beyond the range of manpads and so decreasing the losses of a Kar-52. There are many videos of Elmur missile strikes on Ukrainian armour shared online. They played a very big role during Ukraine's counter-offensive, inflicting pretty heavy losses on Ukrainian armour. So I'd say the Elmur definitely warrants a place on the list. It's a very good weapon, one of Russia's best of the war. Number 8, marine drones. Everybody loves marine drones, except Russians, I guess. Ukraine developed these to counter Russian shipping of the Black Sea Fleet, and they've been a massive success. Victories credited to them so far are the Tarantul-3 missile corvette the Ivanovets, which completely sunk, Cerner-class landing craft and the Nakula-class landing craft hit near Crimea, the Rapua-class landing craft the Caesar Kunikov, which completely sunk, the large patrol boat Sergei Kotov, sunk by marine drones, and there were also a number of successful hits on tuna landing craft and a tug called the Saturn, which again were destroyed by these marine drones. As well as ones completely sunk or destroyed, these also damaged the Pavel Jazarvin patrol boat, which spent months in dry dock after being hit by one of these. The landing craft Gornyak, which had a big hole put into it, and on the same day, a Russian oil tanker, which was hit near the Crimean Bridge. Ukraine also used these to plant mines outside of Sevastopol harbour, damaging the Bora-class hovercraft after it hit a mine out there, and the reported Alexandric-class minesweeper, which had to be taken to Novorossiysk for repairs. And of course, we can't forget that this carried out a successful strike on the Crimean Bridge itself, so the marine drones have been excellent, and Ukraine keeps improving them. In recent weeks, we've seen them fitted with anti-air missiles down in a pair of helicopters off the coast of Crimea, and also converted into FPV drone motherships in order to attack land targets. Actually, reading this list of achievements, it may seem odd to have it so low, but there have been many well-performing weapons which I think have had a bit more of an impact. The marine drones are great, no doubt. We've been a big part of driving the Black Sea Fleet out of Sevastopol to Nova Assist, but we are limited to the sea. These aren't really going to do much to affect the main battles taking place on land. The marine drones can't hit ammo dumps, Russian headquarters, airfields, and key targets like that. They're limited to the sea, which is a bit of a downside to them. But still, a bunch of toy boats have forced the Russian Navy to hide in Nova Assist base and effectively abandon Sevastopol. That's very impressive. So the marine drones definitely warrant a place on the list. Number 7, Storm Shadow. I love Storm Shadow. The first long-range missile given to Ukraine, and it certainly proved its worth with Russia struggling to counter it for a very long time. Ukraine has used this to hit a wide variety of targets, including ammo dumps, bridges, headquarters, and of course, the Black Sea Fleet. The reason it's lower down on the list is, despite its successes, it has had a few downsides too. When used against the Chonhar Bridge, for example, it caused little damage, and Russia has since learned to counter a bit more to a higher degree than we once had. We don't see as many successful strikes as we once did. Plus, Ukraine has got through most of the ones that were sent now, so the Storm Shadow isn't having as much of an impact as it once did. But it still definitely warrants a place on the list. Some of the impressive scalps that Storm Shadow has are strikes against the Russian fleet, destroying the Rapua-class landing ship, the Minsk, the Rostov-on-Don submarine, the Karakurt-class corvette, the Yaskold, and the Rapua-class landing craft, the Novocherkask. Very impressive for a missile, not intended for an anti-shipping role. It also scored a very notable and impressive strike on the Black Sea Fleet's headquarters in Sevastopol. Other strikes, damaged but not destroyed, including the intelligence ship Yuri Ivanov and the Rapuas Yamal and Arzov, which were hit by storm shadows in the same strike. Since then, even though the ships weren't sunk, they haven't left Sevastopol harbour, so they were badly damaged, and Russia has been unable to fix them. So these have played a key role in dismantling the Black Sea Fleet and forcing it into Nova Assist. Number 6, the Bradley, the best armoured fighter vehicle of the war, by far. The Bradley has been an absolute beast in Ukraine, seen on videos not only destroying Russian equivalents like BMPs and BTRs, but being used to storm towns, providing support for infantry, providing heavy fire support, and of course its biggest scalp when a pair of Bradleys took on a T-90M tank, damaging it to the point where it had to be abandoned by the crew. The T-90M, of course, is Russia's best tank, taken out by a pair of Bradleys. So the Bradley has been excellent. Big fan of the Bradley. Number 5 on the list, Patriot, which may seem quite low considering how successful it's been, but I think the weapon systems which I put above it are worthy of their places in bunging it down a few points. Among the Patriot's successors, the notable one, the Patriot ambush that downed a Su-34, a Su-35, two Mi-8 electronic warfare helicopters, and a Mi-8 transport helicopter in one day, after a Patriot battery was moved near Bryansk and carried out an ambush. Other notable successors, a Su-24 ambushed over the Black Sea near Snake Island. In December 2023, three Su-34s downed in one day over Kherson region in a successful ambush. An A-50 AWACS downed and an Il-22M damaged over the Sea of Azov on January 15th. An Il-76 transporter downed in January 24th over Belgrade. A period in February 2024 where we saw a bunch of downings of Russian aircraft. On 18th of February, Su-35 and a Su-34 downed in Donetsk by Patriot ambush, with satellite data detecting the pilot's distress beacons. On the 19th of February, another Su-34 and a Su-35 were downed. 21st of February, another Su-34. February the 24th, an A-50 AWACS downed over Krasnodar. It's possible that this was actually a S-200 used here though, but reportedly used in conjunction with the Patriot's radar system and guidance system. Later in February 27th, another Su-34 downed, the 10th in 12 days, and then on the 29th, another Su-34 downed, the 12th since the 17th of February. This was the peak of Ukrainian Patriot operations, a huge month of success by Ukrainian air defense, all attributed to Patriot. These ambushes seemed to end when one, possibly two Patriot launchers were confirmed as destroyed by Russia, who hit it whilst being transported. That hit very likely the launchers of the battery which had been carrying out these successful ambushes on Russian aircraft. Certainly, the Patriot ambushers did drop off since that battery was damaged, and it appears that Patriot was instead kept to protect the cities and the key targets from missiles, where again it has done an excellent job. It has some huge interceptions of Russian drones and Russian missiles. At number 4 we have the highest placed Russian weapon, the Lancet drone. The Lancet is good, no question. It's a loitering munition first unveiled in 2019. They were first deployed in Ukraine in June 2022. We saw it inflicting damage to and destroying a wide range of Ukrainian targets, including S-300 SAM systems, Buk SAM systems, Ukrainian tanks, towed howitzers such as the M777, Stormer air defense systems, self-propelled artillery systems like the Krab, M109, the Caesar. Russia has also used them to hit Yayuz-M gunboats, damaging them, and also hitting parked Ukrainian jets at air bases, which may have been decoys, it's uncertain. Some of them certainly were decoys, others I'm not too sure. They may have been actual jets. According to Lost Armor, as of February 2024, 28th of February 2024, Russia conducted a total of 1,163 Lancet strikes on various Ukrainian weapon systems since July 2022. Of these, 363 targets, 31.2%, were destroyed. 615 targets, so 52.9%, suffered substantial damage. The drone failed to strike a target in 92 instances, and outcomes remain unconfirmed for 91 sorties. So that's quite an impressive success rate there. Not too many misses when compared to Lancet launchers, so these are pretty good. Nearly half of the Lancet's engagements reportedly focus on artillery installation. This includes 255 self-propelled artillery systems, 272 towed howitzers and mortars, 34 MLRS launchers. In that period, 197 of the Lancet's targets were tanks, 118 lighter armoured vehicles, so we're talking BMPs and M113s, that sort of thing, and 10 were Ukrainian boats. 10% of targets were motor vehicles and other relatively low value targets, so hitting Ukraine's supply lines and utility trucks. And 14% of the targets were very high value, surface to air missile launchers and radar systems. So the Lancer is very good, and for me, the best Russian weapon of the war. Number 3, long range attack drones. So this has truly been the war of the drones, with long range attack drones being used widely on both sides. So included here are the Ukrainian ones and Russia's Shahed drones. I've grouped them in together as long-range attack drones. So on the Ukraine side, we see many successful strikes on Russia's oil infrastructure, air bases, Russian headquarters, ammo dumps, and more. Arguably the most successful were the strikes wiped out two of Russia's major arsenals, reportedly carried out by Plyansia attack drones. Ukraine uses many different types, some of which are shown here, from the famous Beaver drone, the UJ-22 that resembles an aircraft, the old Tu-143 Soviet-era drone, converted into an attack role, and more. The most commonly used by Ukraine appears to be the Lyutny, and I'm sure I've butchered the pronunciation of that. And Russian air defense seems to struggle in intercepting them. Ukraine has carried out hundreds of strikes in Russia with them, and time again, they, or rather, debris from interceptor drones, lands on the target. A good number of these strikes targeting oil refineries. Russia too has utilised long-range attack drones, notably the Shahed, and like Ukraine, they utilise it pretty well. Shaheds are often launched in swarms, often at the same time as missiles in order to suck up Ukrainian air defence. Being cheap to produce and quick to produce, it doesn't really matter too much to Russia if the Shaheds are intercepted. They get intercepted, soak up the sunfire, and allow the missiles to get through. Russia tends to use these to hit key military targets, such as apartment buildings, nurseries, hospitals, and train stations. Number 2, we have to have HIMARS. I'm grouping HIMARS rockets and ATACMS in as one here, since we use the same launch platform. But HIMARS has been an absolute star for Ukraine in the war. It was called a game changer when it was sent. And that nickname has been mocked by Russian shills, claiming it hasn't changed the game at all, but it certainly has. Kherson region and Kherson city, notably, was liberated pretty much thanks to HIMARS, with Ukraine using it to absolutely mallet the Antonovsky Bridge, until the bridge became so weak that Russia couldn't use it for resupply. A few weeks later, after the Antonovsky Bridge was put out of action, Russia had to abandon Kherson. So in my book, this definitely did change the game. Ukraine may have liberated Kherson eventually without HIMARS, but HIMARS certainly made the job easier by destroying the Antonovsky Bridge. Away from Kherson and the Antonovsky Bridge, we've seen HIMARS inflict heavy losses on Russian forces. Both uses pretty much a long-range sniper rifle to smash key targets like howitzers, grads and SAM systems, with the HIMARS long range helping prevent Russia from targeting it in return. It's also extremely accurate. We don't see too many HIMARS misses. There was a period when Russia's excellent electronic warfare equipment was affecting it, and Excalibur as well, but the HIMARS has been modified since, and it's back to its best. Then, of course, we have the famous strike on a Russian column in Kursk, which left over 100 casualties in trucks after HIMARS hit it. Constant strikes on supply posts and officers' headquarters, HIMARS has been excellent, no doubt about it. Unfortunately, only limited numbers were sent by America, but Ukraine has used them pretty well, notably hitting the helicopter fleet at Berdyansk and Luhansk airfield, wiping out over 20 helicopters, including Kar-52s, and forcing Russia to pull back from these bases. So, impacting helicopter operations there. In Crimea, HIMARS has had a pretty good track record against its adversary, the S-300 and S-400, taking out a large number of launchers and radars. Quite embarrassing for Russia that their best SAM system can't intercept a 30-year-old missile. And it's even been used in an anti-shipping role. The Karakurt-class corvette Cyclone was sunk by an attack on strike. The Rostov-on-Don submarine, which Russia was repairing, was hit by attackers whilst at dry dock. And it was also responsible for hitting some of the ferries used by Russia in the transport role near the Kerch Strait. So I think it's safe to say HIMARS has established itself as the king of the MLRS systems. Finally, number one, and a surprise, but a well-deserved surprise, I'm sure most people expected HIMARS to take the number one spot, but it has to go to the FPV drone. We have the humble FPV reach the top of the table ahead of million-pound weapon systems. These little drones have been an absolute revelation in the war. First of all, they're dirt cheap. Many in use well under $1,000 to buy, some as much as a couple of hundred. But they're much more cost effective than the artillery or missiles and yet often manage to do just as good a job. We've seen these used in a variety of ways, from drone dropping troops, hitting bunkers, and of course their main role, targeting armoured vehicles. Pretty much strapping explosives or an RPG underneath one and flying it into a tank or howitzer. And we've had great success in the role, hitting tanks, MLRS systems, SAM systems, howitzers, and light supply vehicles. Russia too uses FPV drones to great effect, but it was Ukraine who first started using them and innovated the concept. And they keep evolving. Russia and Ukraine started deploying jammers on vehicles to protect against these drones. So then we saw fibre optic drones being used, which jammers don't work against. So this has definitely been the war which established the concept of cheap drones as a weapon. So that's the end of the list. Hope you enjoyed it. A few weapon systems which didn't make the list but deserve a shout out, of course the NLAW and Javelin, Bayraktar, which performed extremely well early on, but its effectiveness decreased since, the T-90M, which didn't make the list because it's useless, and of course self-propelled howitzers. I didn't include those because how do I pick between them? Between, say, the Panzerhaubitze 2000 and the Caesar, or the Crab and the AS-90, or the M109 and the Dana, or the Plyon and the Mr. S. They all have very similar capabilities. Some may have a longer range, but aren't as available in high numbers as the others. Some may be available in high numbers, but have a shorter max range. So I couldn't really pick one self-propelled howitzer as standing above the rest. If you put an axe to my neck and told me to pick one, I'd stick my neck out and select the Panzerhaubitze as the best. But there's not really enough to differentiate between them. So that's it for this video. Hope you found it interesting. If you agree or disagree with some of the placements or have a recommendation for a system which should have been mentioned, let me know in the comments. Now, I'm going to play a video from the Ukraine Volunteer Centre about the ongoing fundraiser. Thanks so much and take care everybody.
Attention, urgent fundraising. We are an international volunteer foundation created by soldiers. We know that in war every second decides whether to live or die. Today, we are raising funds for 2 minibuses for Ukrainian paramedics. Without this vehicle, paramedics will not be able to save the wounded. Under constant shelling on the front line, paramedics are pulling fighters from death. But without transportation, they can't make it. Every second is a life. Now we can help them work faster, save more, bring defenders home alive. We need your support. Fundraising target is $22,000. Donate, tell your friends, share this video. Every contribution you make is someone's saved life. Together to victory.